Ready for a deep dive? We're about to jump into a world where materials get so thin, they're practically two-dimensional.
Yeah, we're talking about the nanoscale, and trust me, things get really wild at that size.
We're diving into a recent paper from the Journal of Applied Physics, and let me tell you, it's got some seriously cool implications for the future of, well, pretty much everything.
It's like we're discovering a whole new set of tools. These 2D materials, they act so differently from their bulkier counterparts. It's opening up possibilities we could only dream of before.
And the material they're focusing on in this paper, it's called germanium sulfide, GGS for short. What's so special about it?
Well, GeS already has this cool ability to mess around with both light and electricity at the same time.
Okay, that's already pretty interesting.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting. This research, they're taking it a step further, using this technique called organometallic intercalation.
Okay, gotta be honest, the first time I saw that term, I thought it was straight out of Star Trek. What's actually happening there?
So imagine this. You've got these crazy thin sheets, like we're talking just atoms thick, right? That's your germanium sulfide.
Okay, got it. Super thin sheets.
Now picture this. You start carefully sliding different molecules between those sheets, like you're building some kind of atomic sandwich.
So we're talking about manipulating these materials, like literally atom by atom.
Okay, that's the gist of it, yeah. And just like adding different stuff to a sandwich changes how it tastes. These different molecules, they can tweak the properties of the GS.
So what kind of tweaking are we talking about here? We're not making the GS taste better, are we?
Not quite. We're talking about changing the way it behaves, making it way more efficient. Like the researchers found that just by using different molecules, they can make the GS conduct electricity way better or change how it interacts with light.
Okay, so real-world applications here. How does this translate into something I might actually use?
Well, think about it. Better conductivity means we can make way more efficient solar panels.
Oh, so we're talking about cheaper, more sustainable energy. Now you're speaking my language.
You got it, but it doesn't stop there. The researchers, they discovered that by using specific molecules, they could actually make the GS magnetic.
Wait, hold on. We went from light and electricity to magnetism. How does that even work at such a small scale?
Well, it's all about the electrons. These molecules, they can actually change how the electrons spin within the GS.
Electron spinning. Got it.
And that spin, that's what creates magnetism.
Okay, so we're controlling invisible forces at the atomic level here. That's pretty mind-blowing. But why is making something magnetic so important?
Because, think about it, almost all our technology relies on magnetism. Your hard drive, your phone, everything. Controlling magnetism at this level, it opens up a whole new world, especially for things like data storage and quantum computing.
Data storage, quantum computing, we're talking about some seriously next-level stuff here.
We are, and it just goes to show how versatile these 2D materials can be. But there's another discovery in this paper that I think you'll find pretty fascinating.
Okay, hit me.
They found that these tweaked materials, they're really good at interacting with UV light.
UV light, like the stuff that gives you a sunburn.
The one and only. And yeah, too much of it can be bad news. But UV light also has a ton of potential for all sorts of technologies.
Okay, you've got my attention. What kind of potential are we talking about?
Well, for starters, imagine UV sensors that are way more sensitive than anything we've got right now. Detectors that could pick up the tiniest traces of UV light.
And that would be useful for?
Oh, all sorts of things. Astronomy, environmental monitoring, even medical imaging.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Being able to see things at that level of detail could lead to some incredible breakthroughs.
No doubt. But it gets even wilder. They're talking about actually using UV light to store data.
Wait, what? You're saying we could store information using light? How's that even work?
It's complicated, but basically, by messing with how the UV light interacts with those 2D materials, they think they can encode information using light patterns.
So it's like writing in invisible ink, but with light. That's straight out of a spy movie.
Well, let's be real for a second. We're talking about a lot of potential here.
How do we get from these exciting lab results to something that actually works in the real world?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. It's one thing to make the stuff work in a lab, but scaling it up, making it practical for mass production, that's a whole other challenge.
So what's standing in the way? What are the biggest hurdles?
Well, for one, figuring out how to make these materials cheaply and efficiently on a large scale. Right now, the processes they use are pretty expensive and time-consuming.
So until they can streamline that manufacturing process, it's going to be hard to get these materials into the hands of people who could really use them. What else? What other challenges are they facing?
Integration is a big one. It's not enough to just make the materials. We have to figure out how to integrate them into existing tech, or even invent entirely new tech around them.
And of course, we need to make sure these materials are up for the task, right? They have to be stable and reliable over the long haul, especially if they can be used in things like solar panels or data storage.
Exactly. No point in building something amazing if it falls apart after a year. And of course, safety is paramount.
Right. We want to make sure these new materials and technologies aren't going to cause any unexpected problems down the line.
Couldn't agree more. Thorough testing, responsible development, that's all crucial to make sure these discoveries actually lead to a better future for everyone.
It's like we're standing at the edge of this whole new world of possibilities, but we're still figuring out the rules of the game.
And that's what makes it so exciting, right? There's so much more to learn, so much potential for groundbreaking discoveries.
Speaking of discoveries, anything about how they tackled this research that really stood out to you?
You know, what impressed me was how precise they were with their methods. Like, they weren't just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
They had a plan.
Exactly. They had this deep understanding of the germanium sulfide and those organometallic molecules, and they used that knowledge to manipulate the material at such a fundamental level.
It's like they had the blueprint to the machine, and they knew exactly which levers to pull.
It really highlights how important that fundamental research is. And it wasn't just physicists working in a vacuum either. They had chemists, material scientists, even computer scientists involved.
A real team effort, pulling expertise from all over.
Exactly. And that kind of collaboration is going to be essential moving forward.
So looking ahead, what's next for this field? What are the big questions researchers need to tackle?
Well, this study focused on germanium sulfide, but there are tons of other 2D materials out there, each with its own quirks and potential. Imagine what we could learn by applying these techniques to a whole new set of materials.
It's like they've opened one door, and now there's a whole hallway of possibilities waiting to be explored.
Exactly. And of course, there's still the issue of scalability. Figuring out how to mass produce these materials efficiently and affordably, that's going to be key if we want to see these discoveries make a real impact on the world.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Exactly. But for anyone listening who wants to learn more, we'll be sure to link to the research paper in the show notes. It's a fascinating read, even if you're not a scientist.
Always happy to encourage a little curiosity. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of nanomaterials. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.